Hello everybody. Alright, today we are looking at mathematical modeling with parabolas. So some word problems and how we can model a word problem with a parabola. And this is actually a very applicable subject. If you think about kicking a soccer ball or throwing a ball, the ball goes up, comes down, and that actually follows the path of parabola. So this is very applicable, and we'll get into it today. So the graphing equation of a parabola is, remember the graphing equation is the y equals a parenthesis x minus h quantity squared plus k. So here we have a simple example. It says the diagram at right shows a jackrabbit jumping over a 3-foot high fence. To clear the fence, the rabbit must start its jump at a point 3 feet from the fence. Okay, so there's 4 feet from the fence. Sketch this situation and write an equation that models the path of the jackrabbit. So if you notice the rabbit path, it looks like a U shape, and we have that is 3 feet high, and from here to here is 8 feet. So here's how you're going to do this. So the path of the jackrabbit makes a parabola. Make a set of axes. And we're always going to have our object start its flight at 0, 0. Label it on the sketch. So down here, we're going to draw XY axes. Sometimes it may say it's starting so far in the air, then you can start there, but for the most part, if it's starting on the ground, we're starting at 0, 0. So I put a point there, label 0, 0. Step 3 then says place a point at the horizontal distance the object traveled. Label that on the sketch. So in this case, our rabbit traveled 8 feet across, landed 8 feet from where it started. So my sketch, I'm just going to go here. Again, it's just a sketch, so put a point on the x-axis, and we're labeling this 8, 0. Step 4, now you must find the vertex. All parabolas have a line of symmetry. That line will always be in the middle of the x-intercepts. Find the middle, or the average, of the two x values you have plotted. This will be your h value. The problem will give you a maximum height of the object. That will be your k value. Okay, so we're finding our vertex. So it has our rabbit has an x-intercept of 0 and 8. So that means the middle of 0 and 8, or the average of 8 plus 0 divided by 2 is 4. So 4 is our h value. That's how far we go over. And in the problem, it told us we were getting 3 feet high at the highest. So we'd go over 4, up 3. This is the point 4, 3. And it says plot the vertex point on your graph and connect the points to make a parabola. So we already plotted the vertex, 4, 3. Made it a parabola, and again, since this is the vertex, our vertex is always h, k. Step 6. Now that we have this, we are also going to label one of these other points as x and y. So the 0, 0 and the 8, 0, just regular points in the graph. So I'm going to call them x, y, x, y. So now that we have that, we're going to substitute the values of x, y, h, and k into the graphing equation for a parabola. And remember that graphing equation is y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. And you only need one of the points. I usually just use the 0, 0. So I'm going to use 0 for x, 0 for y, 4 for h, and 3 for k. And I'll just write that here. You don't have to write that every time. I'm just going to write it so that you can see. I'm going to substitute all those numbers in for my graphing equation. So y is 0. A we don't know. I'm going to leave that as a. That x should be 0. My apologies. X is 0 minus h, which is 4 squared plus 3. This is what we should have. Notice we don't have the a, that's what we're solving for, so solve for a. So we want to simplify that a little first. 0 minus 4 is negative 4, and negative 4 squared is 16. Now, this is where some people make a mistake. It's a times 16 plus 3. People want to treat the 16 and the 3 and add them together. However, the 16 and the a are connected. Those are written as 16a. So if I were you, I'd write it so that the variable is on the right-hand side, because now it's much easier to see that these two are not like terms. If you write it like this, a lot of people want to make the mistake of adding the 16 and the 3 because they don't realize that the 16 has an a with it. But it does. So write it like this. You can see that they're not like terms. And you would subtract 3 because they're not like terms because you're trying to solve for a. So I have 16a equals negative 3. We divide by 16. And then we would have a equals negative 3 over 16. We always want to leave our answers in fraction form, because those are exact form, and reduced fraction form. So just remember, if you are going to have a calculator, you would press negative 3 divided by 16. Now this you could reduce on your own. Notice that it doesn't reduce, but just remember, type that in your calculator, and then you can press math number 1 for fraction. That will always make your answer a reduced fraction, and in this case we get the negative 3 over 16 again because we know that it doesn't reduce. But just for the future, that's how you can always get a reduced fraction. Now it says write your final equation inserting the parameters of a, h, and k. Remember, when you write an equation, the parameters must be filled in and the variables stay as variables. So the variables are x and y, so you must have an x and a y. The a is negative 3 over 16. X must stay as x, minus h, which is 4, quantity squared plus 3. So there is our equation. Now, one other thing. You may think that having an a value of negative 3 over 16 is kind of strange. Well, think about what the a value means. An a value of negative 3 over 16, and negative means the parabola is flipped, which our parabola is definitely flipped, so that makes sense. And then remember, if we take the absolute value of that, we get 3/16. 3/16 is between 0 and 1, so that means this would also be vertically compressed or wider. Is this parabola wider than our normal? Yes, it is. So think about that as you're looking at these. Think about whether a value makes sense. In this case, a negative does make sense because it's flipped, and it is vertically compressed, which our parabola is wider. All right, so here we have example 2, Courtney kicking a soccer ball. So I'd like you to try that one on your own. So the first thing you need to know, it's a horizontal distance of 150 feet and a height of 100 feet. All right, so first thing you want to do is make a sketch. So here's what your sketch should look like. We labeled 0, 0. We labeled 150, 0. because it went a horizontal distance of 150. We found the middle of 0 and 150, which is 75. And we know the height was 100. So our vertex was at 75 and 100. So we label h as 75, k is 100, x is 0, y is 0. So now that we have our sketch, go ahead and solve for a. All right, so we plug in what we know. This would be our first step. 0 equals a, parentheses 0 minus 75 squared plus 100. We would subtract 100 from there. And we would end up with 5,625a equals negative 100. Remember, we're trying to get the a by itself, and the a is being multiplied by 5625, so I had to divide by 5625. And when you type that in your calculator, make sure you reduce, that math fraction we just talked about. And you would end up with negative 4 over 222. And so our final equation would be negative 4 over 222, or negative 4 over 225, x minus 75 squared plus 100. Now, we didn't talk about this yet, but how far off the ground was the ball when it was a horizontal distance of 120 feet away? So, what this is saying is when I am 120 feet away from where I started horizontally, so that would be about here, 120, where or how high am I in my path of the ball? So, basically, I have my equation already. This is the set equation for this parabola. I'm not changing that at all. All I'm doing is wanting to know when my x is 120, basically saying when your x is 120, what is your y value? So I'm going to just take my equation that I did. I'm not changing, I'm not solving for anything else. I'm just putting 120 in for x and solving for y. Okay, so that would be looking like this. You can type this all in your calculator. I usually do that first. So 120 minus 75 is 45. And then I would go ahead and just type this whole thing in my calculator as is. And it's up to you. Anyway, you should have 64 and make sure you have a unit because this is a word problem. So it should be 64 feet away. All right, try example 3. So it says find the equation of a parabola with a vertex of 3, negative 7, passing through the point 983. So just a hint for you, this one, we don't need to draw a sketch because the only reason we draw a sketch is because we need to help find where the vertex is. In this case, they are giving us the vertex, the h and the k, they give that to us, and they're giving us a point, x and y. So just go ahead and plug in the h and k, x, y, solve for a, and write your equation. All right, and then you're going to try the other examples, and we'll practice it some more.